In addition to doing analysis of Dr. Umar and Charlemagne's commentary, be sure to stay tuned to the end of the video. I have some additional new updates about the Ma'khia Bryant case at the end of the video, so stay tuned to hear those. So we haven't had a lot of updates with the Ma'khia Bryant shooting, but we have had enough. And fortunately, the cops were forthcoming. The police department was forthcoming and said, hey, boom, here's the tape. Here's what happened when we came on the scene. Here's from the shooting officer's perspective. Here's from the other officer's perspectives. However, there is still a significant backlash. And I want to talk about what Dr. Umar and Charlemagne had talked about it, initially when it happened. But Dr. Umar also had some things to say when he appeared on The Breakfast Club last week.
Now let's talk about that. Ma'khia Bryant in Ohio.
Ma'khia Bryant.
Yeah.
They're claiming, is she the one who called the police? Mm-hmm. They're claiming that the police had a right to shoot her. Even coons, Negroes are running around saying, well, she had a knife. So that justifies her being killed?
Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. I'm your host, Aaron Comey, and I want to talk about the reaction because, listen, you've got a 16-year-old girl who's dead, and it's like why? And I get the pain, especially the timing. Chauvin just got convicted. Like before the conviction even comes back from Chauvin, the shooting happens. We get word of it after the conviction, is read. So after the conviction is read, then the news comes out. Okay, there's been another shooting, another police-involved shooting. Young girl is dead, and the initial stories are they're saying that the cops are lying, that she was coming at the cop with a knife and she was actually unarmed. The police department, and I get not liking police because I'm not a fan of police. And the funny thing is, there's a lot of people who want police, who feel they need police, but still hate police. I don't need police. I don't think we need police. And I want to see a world without police. However, I know we're not there yet. I know there's a lot of work that individuals need to do in order to get to that point. However, if police disappear tomorrow, I'm good. I'm good. Some people who are complaining, who are pissed off, would not be good. They would not feel safe. They would not be safe. And they would not know what to do. That's something people should keep in perspective. Do you need police? Do you feel you need police? Because if you do, then take a step back, take a deep breath, and observe, okay, maybe deal with cases on a case-by-case basis and see whether or not there's an objectively reasonable standard being applied, whether or not the activities and what's happened, what's transpired, is objectively reasonable. Like I said, I'm the type of person, if police said, okay, we're quitting, you're on your own, I'm like, okay, good. I'm good. But I can still see that this case, from the perspective of several people, hey, from what we've seen, the cop did his job. From what we've seen. Now, there may be certain specifics about policy and procedures and practices that he's supposed to do that may impact whether or not he actually followed those procedures and whether or not he keeps his job. But based on what they have stated, that police are allowed to use deadly force when protecting themselves or others, in defense of themselves or others, this seems to clearly fit the bill, as Ma'khia Bryant was in the process of swinging a knife at another young woman. Don't ignore that. Please don't ignore that. If you support Ma'khia Bryant, if you're sad that she died, I get it. But don't discount that this young woman in pink was about to be stabbed and could have lost her life had this cop not acted.
Because I work in school, Charlemagne. I have seen lunchroom aides with no police training, no bulletproof vests, no night-proof vests, no gun in their pocket. I have seen elderly black women and elderly black men take knives and other weapons out of the hands of students during lunchroom riots.
Now we'll get into some of the specifics now, because Charlemagne had some statements to make about this in the past. Like, him and Envy didn't see eye to eye, and Charlemagne feels that, boom, he shouldn't have shot her. He should have stopped her somehow, some other way. He should have tackled her, and Umar was saying many of the same things. I think that let's start with the moment when she's about to stab her. She's in the motion of swinging her arm back. In that moment, he's too far away to tackle her. Even if he attempts to and manages to close the distance in time, his momentum is actually going to be bringing her into the girl in pink. So he would actually put the girl in pink in greater danger by charging at her. You see, in order to stop her, his momentum would have to be coming from the side. And I know you say, oh, he has to grab, but that's what I'm saying. You're saying he has to cover the distance between them, and before her arm hits the girl with the blade hits the girl in pink, and pull her arm back. So he has to do a lot of things, and that just doesn't seem to be a logical position. Based on what we're seeing at that moment, it doesn't seem as if there's anything else you can do. Shoot her in the leg. People, this is not the movies. That's not how things work. Because even if he does shoot her in the leg, what guarantee is that stops her from swinging? Yeah, like, she's in the middle of swinging. His job is to shoot center mass to stop her, period. To stop her. Like, he needs to, yeah. And so that's one of the reasons they're saying, why did he shoot her 4 times? I think they're saying 5 times. But you know why he shot? Because he needed to make sure she was stopped. That was the objective. That was the point.
But yet and still, you have white males who are conducting mass murders all across this country. Almost every other week, we're getting a mass murder in America, and almost every one of these fully armed, fully violent, murderous white men were apprehended by the police without being shot and without losing their life. So explain to me how a white man with an AK-47 can be taken without a police officer firing a bullet after he done murdered 6, 7, 8 people, but a 16-year-old girl with a butter knife cannot be apprehended without a bullet being shot. That is nonsense. They killed her because they knew they would get away with it.
And it's funny because, well, it's not funny, but it's interesting because I just came across a video from a couple of years ago, a black man and protecting a pregnant woman who was being harassed and almost assaulted by a white guy who, you know, had some issue with her daughter driving, the way her daughter was driving, and the dude was like getting up into her face, and she's like, "What are you doing? Why are you getting? Listen, back up." And he was being very aggressive, and so the black gentleman walks up, says, "No, this is a woman. What's wrong with you?" And the dude continued to get aggressive, so the black guy pulled out his gun. He never pointed it at him, but he pointed at the ground. Now, the interesting thing is, the commentary was that, he didn't shoot him, which was a good thing. I'm like, not necessarily. I believe and different laws are different. Operate different ways in different states, but this is something I think that black people need to be aware of. Need to be aware of the laws when drawing a weapon, pointing a weapon, brandishing a weapon, and when using a weapon is authorized by law. Be aware of that and act accordingly. So we've seen cases where black people have been killed by somebody who felt afraid for the safety. My message to black people. And I think it's the same message that applies in this case. You don't draw your weapon unless there's a threat. And once you draw that weapon, you eliminate that threat. Do not half step. You do not half step. Eliminate that threat. And that's it. You make sure you know what the law is. especially, yeah, if you own a firearm, make sure you know what the law is regarding the firearm, regarding possession, regarding carry, whether it's concealed or open carry, whether or not you need a permit, what are the laws on self-defense, when you're allowed to draw the gun, when you're allowed to use the gun in defense, whether the castle or stand your ground laws apply. But when you draw that weapon, use that weapon. If there's enough danger for you to have to draw the weapon, do not be afraid to use that weapon. And that's something, it's a perspective that I see that's not really, that a lot of black people don't have the perspective, but we need to. We need to have it for several reasons. And if you have that, and I guess that's why I have much more ease seeing the cop's perspective. Once he pulls his weapon, at this point, I'm pulling it because I see an imminent threat. I'm using it. That's so I can easily see that perspective because that's my perspective. If I have to draw a weapon, or if anybody has to draw a weapon, make sure it's because there's an imminent threat, and then use it to eliminate that threat. That's it. It's not about just scaring the person, making them back down. No. Once you pull it, because, and I heard a really tragic story recently about a person who put their weapon down because there was a threat. They put their weapon down. They didn't really understand the scope of the threat, and the other person had a weapon and murdered them. And it's like, no, like we have to stop with this. Like, it's not about bravado or being tough, macho. Like, no, the weapon is to eliminate a threat. If there is a threat, eliminate that threat. If you must brandish the weapon, if you must bring out the weapon, use it to eliminate the threat, and make sure you're using it within the scope of the law, so that afterwards, the aggressor, the threat can be, their body can be carted off, you will still be alive, and you will be free because you operated within the scope of the law. But that's what I'm seeing here. There's this perspective of thinking that, oh yeah, we can pull guns for just to scare people. Like, no, just to get them to back up and just get them to stop. No, like, that's not the purpose of the gun. If you're pulling it, if there's a necessity, if pulling the weapon is an absolute necessity, you have to use the weapon. Use it. And I believe that's how the cop is trained, and I believe that's how many gun owners are trained. But that's what we have to understand. And black people, I believe more black people should be gun owners and should understand that principle.
She wasn't defending herself. It wasn't like she was defending. She was coming aggressively for that other girl.
Well, she was defending herself, though, Envy. You can't do that. Right, I mean, they jumped her before and they came to her house. That was her.
But when they're talking about, there's several things I see them get wrong about this case. And there's certain facts that's like, okay, wait a minute, that's not actually accurate. That's what's being said after the fact. But there's no evidence. There's not sufficient evidence to suggest that these claims, this narrative is accurate, is being told truthfully. So first of all, they're saying she called the police.
911, where's your emergency? Is there an apartment letter? What's going on?
Come on here! The
Ma'am, you need to talk to me.
It's 3171. We got these grown girls over here trying to fight us, trying to stab us, trying to put our hands on our grandma. Get here now!
Have you seen any weapons? Ma'am, do you see any weapons?
We need a police officer here now.
Do you see any weapons?
Police officer now.
Ma'am, do you see any
We got
weapons?
on the door trying to hear us. Go!
There's no evidence that has not been confirmed. Some people are saying that when in reality, there's ample evidence that her younger sister called the police, because her younger sister had called the police before. There have been several calls to the police because her younger sister clearly did not want to be in this place. And this also starts to give you an idea of the psychology of her younger sister and them in that environment. They didn't want to be there. So even if they are calling the police, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of the information they're giving the police is accurate. They could be trying to tell the police, oh, well, yeah, they're harassing us, they're this, because they just want to be gone. They just want to get out of that place. And it's not to demean them. It's like, okay, this is what they're dealing with, because there is, like the mother has said, you know, hey, you know, there's evidence to suggest that the mother wanted them, and that there were parties on both sides that wanted them out of the house. As far as you know, their actual parents and them in themselves, they didn't want to be in that situation. But we don't know why, and we're waiting to see more evidence. The family has a lawyer, and we're waiting to see more information about why they were in foster care and whether or not the state was interfering with them getting out of foster care or even getting out of that location, period. Because the foster parents are saying the foster mother is having and presenting a different story. And if you look at what transpired on camera, there seems to be some legitimacy to her story. These were the girls in the girl in the pink, the girl that got knocked down, were former foster children of this woman. From what we're hearing, they were there to celebrate her birthday, but they were also telling these younger girls, Ma'khia and her younger sister, you have to clean up the house. Now, could that have been the source of animosity? You're not my mother. You're not even the foster parent here. You can't tell me what to do. They're frustrated. They're angry. They don't want to be there. And now they have somebody else other than their foster mother, who they don't even want to be with anyway, telling them what to do, and they don't like it. That's not being jumped. That's not being threatened. That's just being told what to do. If these women are actually, if these young ladies are actually adults, that's being told what to do by an adult, somebody who's older, somebody who's your elder. They're not way elder, but they're still older than you, and they're trying to tell you, hey, this is what you should be doing, and they didn't take kindly to it. That being the case, it's a completely different story, because like we've seen nothing on that tape indicated that they were there to jump her. Nothing on that tape indicated that they had tried to jump her. We didn't see any of that. We heard arguing, and then we see them outside just standing around. Because remember, there's a second call. There is a second call to the police department.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
It's on Legion Lane.
What's the emergency there?
Oh, well, never mind. The police are already out here. Never mind. Thank you.
And remember how that, and see, a lot of people don't know this because a lot of people didn't actually watch the press conference. They didn't watch they only saw some of the clips on social media. There was a second call to the police. The second call, let me tell you how it goes. Oh yeah, police, okay, I see you're coming. That sounds like the person who called was outside. It seems like the girl in the pink, the young lady in the pink, it seems like she's holding a phone when the cop walks up, when Reardon walks up. She could have been the person who actually called the police the second time. And she realized that things were getting out of hand. So now if you're going by who called the police, this young lady may have actually been the next one to call the police. And then that narrative goes out the window of, oh, well, she was the one that was being attacked. Like this, it doesn't seem like the girl in the pink or the other girl were there to attack her. We saw no evidence of that. And we don't know, we also didn't see evidence that Ma'khia called the police. There is evidence to suggest that Ma'khia called her father. And this is where you need to be angry, because this is where I'm angry. And this is where I see charges being filed. I see a potential felony murder case being developed and the father being charged, because you got there on the scene, your daughter, and I'm assuming that this gentleman, because the way he was talking, it sounds like he's the father. You're walking up to the house. She comes out with a knife. The cops pull up. Instead of you saying, whoa, grabbing her and grabbing the knife, excuse me, instead of grabbing her and grabbing the knife and like tossing that knife away, you let her attack the one girl with a knife and then pivot and attack a second girl with a knife. And instead of, once again, at no point, and the fact that none of y'all are calling this dude out, because let's say the cop doesn't shoot. Let's say the cop says, okay, I don't want to shoot this young girl. But he's going to let his daughter stab somebody to death in front of the police? What kind of clown is this dude? This dude is an absolute fucking clown. You were going to let your daughter stab somebody to death in front of the fucking police. That dude is a fucking... That dude is a piece of shit. That dude is a fucking moron. That dude pisses me off. And then he kicks this girl in the head, like right there. Like you're an idiot because you got your daughter killed. You got Ma'khia Bryant killed because you should have grabbed her. You should have grabbed the knife from her instead of, because your activity actually distracted the cop. So if the cop, so here's something that Charlemagne said, that he could have gotten to her before she was in the process of stabbing. And Charlemagne has a point. But I think that the reason why he didn't is because the chaotic scene that's unfolding in front of him with Ma'khia charging that other girl, and then this dude kicking her in the head. Like, you're distracting. So like he wants to stop Ma'khia, and then at the same time, he's got to worry about you attacking this girl. And now he's got to stop Ma'khia in a quick hurry because she's over there about to stab somebody. So now he's got to pivot from you too. And now he's got to deal with her at a distance. And what does he do? He shoots her. He kills her. Now, if you're not being a fucking moron, he has the chance to just grab her. But now his attention went first to the girl getting knocked down, trying to stop Ma'khia. And then he has to deal with, then he's looking at you. And then he has to go back to Ma'khia because Ma'khia is attacking somebody else. And now he has to shoot her. And now you're upset. Why didn't you stop Ma'khia? You saw the police coming. Like, that's when you should have been like, whoa, no, grab her, pull her to the side. Hey. Because at the very least, not even thinking about her getting shot, not letting her stab somebody in front of the fucking cops. Like, what kind of father is going to stand there and let his daughter stab somebody in front of the fucking cops? Like, I don't have words for it. I don't have words for it. Which is why, as you can see, I started this video without cursing. And then as I got to him, I just couldn't. I had to let it out because this dude is such a moron. This dude is like, I don't even understand. Like, what kind of man does that? What kind of man, like, grab the knife from her. Grab the knife from her. So if the cops see somebody with the weapon, it's you. If she had to grab it from her, don't let her get caught with the weapon in front of the police. But that's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of misconceptions about this case, a lot of misinformation, because Umar is saying he didn't even see the cop say put it down. Like, no, he's down. Like, he's yelling at her. He's trying to control the situation verbally before he draws his weapon, before he fires. There's been some pretty bad shoots, some pretty bad police brutality, police murders. We just saw George Floyd. We saw Philando Castile. We saw Eric Garner. There's been some really bad shoots. There's some we didn't see. We didn't see firsthand. We didn't see video of Mike Brown, but we saw a video of this, and it's way different than what the initial reports came out. Way different. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be reasonable. Let's understand. Okay. And let's take a look at it this way. Because there's some say, oh, you shouldn't ever be defending the cops. You should never be defending the government, the power structure. I'm like, why call the cops? Like I said, I'm cool. I can live without police. Can you? Because if you can, then do so. Don't call the police. You got a dispute, you got an issue, handle it. Either discuss, do some conflict resolution, figure something out where everybody's like, okay, we had a dispute, let's peacefully work this out. Or if violence is going to ensue, handle it. But don't invite an occupying force into your community and then ask, why are they occupying? You invited them in. Stop inviting occupiers into your community and then start complaining that an occupation has occurred. But I get it. There's some people who are small, who aren't equipped, and I don't think those people should be targeted. I don't think those people should be victimized by the bigger, the stronger, the armed. I don't think that. I think those of us that are capable should be protecting our communities. That's what we need to be fighting for. We need to be fighting for the ability to, okay, listen, y'all get the fuck out. Leave us the fuck alone. We got this. But there's several things we need to do. We need to make sure that the law allows us the ability to do what we need to do. Because here's what happens if we don't do that. If we're operating outside the law to protect our communities, the law will come in and now treat us as the criminals. And now we have an option to either allow ourselves to be treated as the criminals and removed from our communities, or to not cooperate. Either way leaves our community without protectors. So now they will either be, at the mercy of unscrupulous, weak people who want to prey on the weaker, cowards who want to prey on the weak, or the cowards in uniform, the cowards that work for the system, or just the oppressors, just those who want to enact and impose the will of the state upon whomever they can. See, we need to be able to protect our communities, and that's what we should be fighting for. So if you're of the mindset of, okay, we don't need cops, cool. Let's start by going after these politicians who want to make sure that where the law has criminalized our ability to protect our communities. But I mean, I get, like I said, I get why Umar and Charlemagne are upset that a young lady has lost her life. This young girl, the 16-year-old girl, is dead. And I think right now the anger is misplaced. Just because there was a white man on the scene, a white cop, they called him. 2 people called him. They wanted him there. And he did what his job description was, to stop a threat to somebody's life. There was a threat to the young lady in pink. He stopped that threat. I'm mad that other people didn't stop the threat, that other people let it get that far, and Ma'khia Bryant is dead. Because that's what we need to do. We need to be protecting our communities. We need to be, as adults, as men, we need to be stepping in, squashing stuff, not letting stuff get out of hand, and damn sure not standing by and letting your daughter stab somebody in front of the police, so that worst case scenario, she gets shot to death. Best case scenario, she just goes to prison for life. Like, what? It's ridiculous. But there's a lot of information that people are not getting right about this case. They're not realizing that there were 2 phone calls to 911. They're not realizing that the likely caller was not Ma'khia, but her younger sister. They're not realizing that they didn't want to be in this foster home, and that could be influencing the things that are being said about what's going on and the truthfulness of what's being alleged to the police. Because The police are asking, the dispatcher is asking questions, and there's not a lot of communication being provided from the first caller. The second caller sees the police pulling up. That suggests that the second person was outside. And it very well may have been the young lady in pink was the second caller, and like, hey, this stuff is starting to get out of hand. We need some assistance. Yeah, I mean, it's a tragic situation, but let's pay attention to the facts. And it's not about supporting the system. It's about realizing what the failures are and addressing them. So if we're talking about failures of, well, why was this girl in foster care? That's information we don't have yet, but we need it. If we're talking about failures of why was adults standing around letting her attack two people with a knife in front of the police? That's a problem. It needs to be addressed. Like, why was it allowed? Why were the police brought into the situation in the first place? Why wasn't this handled amongst y'all? These are problems that we need to address. And we don't just need to address them. It's too late for Ma'khia. We don't need more Ma'khias. And the funny thing is, I keep saying it's not funny, but the interesting thing is, if we're dealing with something like conflict resolution, and if we're teaching our young people how better to deal with conflicts, anger, disagreements, then we can keep them safer from the system and help them live with each other and not be worried about being victims of each other. Like, we can solve a bunch of problems, but like it takes us to step up. Like, we have to stop inviting the oppressors into our communities, stop inviting occupying forces into our communities, and then being surprised and upset that we have an occupation. If
she was a white girl with that same knife, does she get shot 5 times?
If I'm a police officer?
Well, not you, with the white, going back to the white officer. If the girl with the knife was a white girl and that was a white neighborhood, does she get shot at all by that same cop?
Gun never even comes out.
Here's the issue with what Dr. Umar has said. He's going to compare, the way mass shooters have been apprehended without being killed, but he's neglecting to mention that in many cases, these individuals are in the process of surrendering or have already surrendered when cops arrive on the scene. That makes a huge difference. He also is failing to mention the name that I think a lot of people need to remember. People tried to compare this to Kyle Rittenhouse. That is not analogous. Kyle Rittenhouse was a completely different situation. I'll do a separate video on that. But the name they need to be remembering is Peyton Ham. Peyton Ham is a 16-year-old white kid that was shot to death by police last month. He had an airsoft gun and a knife, and he was shot by police in his front yard. So I just wanted to fill in some additional information that I came across as I was editing. So it turns out that the kids, Ma'khia, her younger sister, and 2 brothers, all of them children, were taken out of the custody of their mother and placed into, the Franklin County custody in 2018. They were found allegedly unsupervised, and there was allegedly some allegations of abuse made, even though the mother denied any abuse. There was also, I guess, allegations of abuse made against an adult sibling. But yeah, the mother denied that any abuse had occurred. But nonetheless, the kids were out of her custody, and it appears that there was even trouble with her trying to regain custody and even with visitation, because it appears that at one point the visitation was suspended because they felt that she wasn't complying with the rules, and that she was having a negative impact, negative effect upon the children. So it's clear there was a lot going on here before the camera ever starts rolling. And these are things we have to take into consideration, but things we have to not just take into consideration in regards to how we view this case, but take into consideration in how we view, the kids that are out here that are still alive. Like Ma'khia, unfortunately, is gone. We can't bring her back. But there's a lot of kids out here that are alive and that can be saved. And we need to step up and do what we can so that they're not victims of any violence, state or otherwise. We have to do right by these kids. Thank you for checking out this video. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. If you disagree with what I said, feel free to give me a thumbs down. But if you give me a thumbs down, make sure to put in the comment section below why you're giving me a thumbs down. And if you're going to give me a thumbs down, put it in the comment section. I will address it either in the comments or in a future video. Thank you for checking this out. I'll see you next time.